All right, waiting for you guys. We're good. All right, let's go. Welcome, everybody. The TikTok, the Instagram, the YouTube is live. We are beaming around the world for another episode of the show that is and once was affectionately known as Coffee with Goughy, that's now known as Matcha with Goughy. Or is it a Matcha with Paul? Where do we go?
Yeah, I think it's is it Matcha with Paul?
Matcha with Paul. I think depending upon the time of the day, it should be a Coffee with Goughy or a Matcha with Paul. There we go.
The green stuff.
The green stuff. This show and this episode is dedicated to the green stuff, so it makes sense in my head. Everything makes sense in my head that we rename this show to Matcha with Paul, even if it's just unofficially, because I can't be bothered to go through all the branding and all of that shit that everybody likes to fuck around with. So let's call it Coffee with Goughy externally, but we know between us and our dear listeners that this is a Matcha with Paul because we are about the green stuff, and the more of it, the better. The green stuff is what makes the world go round, and yes, that includes healthcare professionals. We need plenty of the green stuff if you want a terrific life. So welcome everybody to another episode of Paul Goff's show, Coffee with Goughy, Matcha with Paul, whatever works best for you. I hope you're well, and thanks again for tuning in to us today. It is Tuesday. There's more crazy stuff going on around the world, and we seem to have lit a fuse. Let's just leave it at that. We've lit a fuse with these conversations about whether or not 150k PTs are gold diggers. We want to know your thoughts. We need to turn this into a phone-in. I'm just putting it out there that this needs to be a phone-in, Andrew. We have our new, what did we call Andrew yesterday?
Executive
Producer's assistant. He had you down as the assistant.
I'm an assistant now.
You're the assistant.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
But do you see what he's done?
Yeah.
He's moved. You're a bit loud there, so you might need to turn you down. He has jumped out of the chair. Well, now you've turned me down. So just turn me back up, but you just be careful, Andrew.
I'll stay back.
Right?
I have a loud voice
There
anyway.
you go.
So
you stay back.
That's kind of my.
So what we've done, if you could see the studio in here, Jay still wants the head title of the producer, but he's moved out of the chair where all of the responsibility is. So now he's claiming the producer of the show without actually having to touch any of the shit. So if it goes wrong, Andrew gets the blame. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is this how it's going to be?
That's how it works.
This is how it works in life, guys.
How it works.
This is how
It
it
is.
works. Told you. What is it? The higher you go, the less you do in this
Move up the
world.
chain.
So we've been speaking about this concept of 150k and whether or not PTs are gold diggers because of basically heading to a corporate shitty hospital system to do a job that they hate for money. And it's been a good debate that we've had, and we've made some comments on Facebook and the Instagram, and we've had some interesting discussions, and you know, as usual, Facebook has brought out the best of human beings, and we've got some wonderful responses. And I just thought today it might be a good idea to just carry on that conversation and just see where we land with it, because it's a big topic right now, this 150k to hire a PT. If your business margin is 8, 9, 10%, which is, you know, typical, it's almost impossible to compete if you are a small business owner. So we've got to do something radical, and we've got to do something fast. And it starts by just owning up to it, that this is the problem that unites us. Yes, you might be listening to this just starting your journey and getting your business off the ground, but the biggest problem that's going to hit you very, very soon, getting patients, is not that difficult. If you're a good PT with good energy, good customer service, you will fill up a caseload with the right marketing system and the right marketing message. But the inevitable challenge comes in people, and people who arrive in your office, and you know, the PT community is struggling right now with a shortage of PTs. But the real challenge is that they want that much money that it's very difficult now for you to compete. So what do we do? Well, what we do is we change our business models, and we stop whinging and whining and moaning and bitching and feeling sorry for ourselves, and we move and we make changes and we do something about it. And I was thinking about this morning because I think I've mentioned a few times, and if you're just new to the show, I've got 5 children. And so there's interesting conversations and dialogues with my children that take place. And as much as I'm their father, I like to think I'm a coach, really. I'm guiding and I'm coaching, and I'm just helping them make sense of life and things that are happening to them. And ultimately, I want, as every parent does, the best for their children. And to do that, you've got to often be brutally honest about where they are and what they're doing in relation to what they want. And sometimes you have to take the stance of daddy knows best, right? And he does, and he should. And I'm not buying into all of the bullshit now where it's let kids do what they want and let them feel their way through life and let them have, their emotional times and periods and all this type of shit in their life. And I'm not into that. I'm into the basic premise that there was a reason that I was born 33 years earlier than Harry. And in that 33 years, I accumulated a lot of mistakes, a lot of stupid things that I did, a lot of lessons, a big log of lessons, lots of good things that I did, lots of things that I wouldn't do again, knowing what I know now, lots of places I've been and experiences that I've had. I've had a view of life expanding over that period of time. I've read the books, I've made the mistakes, I've fell down the traps, I've done a lot of things. And my view of being a father is very, very simple. That there was a reason I was 33 years before Harry, it was so that I could pass a few of those lessons on to him and Tobias and Grayson and Xander and Taylor, so that they don't necessarily avoid my mistakes, but they could if they choose to, but ultimately to help them make sense of all of the stupid shit that's going on around them so that they can find themselves faster, right? And that's ultimately what we're all after. How do we find ourselves, our stability, our security, our sense of who we are as quickly as we can, right? A lot of people never get it. They spend their whole life insecure. They spend their whole life never really feeling what was the point of my life? Like, why was I here? Because I never really felt good about myself at any point. Yes, I had a nice car, or I had a good job, or on paper I had a nice life and lifestyle, but I never really felt secure in myself and really confident in who I was. And I think and this is just my view, this is my role as Harry's father, right? So I often have conversations with my eldest because he's a bit further on than others, but it doesn't mean that I don't do it with the rest. And often times something like basketball will happen on a Saturday and he might not play as well as he could have done. And he'll come off and I will remind him, if he sulks, that he hasn't earned the right to sulk. He can sulk if he wants, but then he's just being a petulant little bastard. But if he had trained all week and he'd got up every morning for 45 minutes before school and he trained for an hour after school and he put 2 hours a day into his basketball, which he's capable of and occasionally he does, and then he has a bad game on a Saturday, I'll tell him it wasn't meant to be, son, right? That just wasn't meant to be. But if he doesn't train, what I have to tell him is the reason that he fucked up was because he didn't train, right? That's it, Harry, that's it, right? And honestly, even on Saturday, Grayson, my 6, now 7-year-old, he did well on Saturday. And he played aggressive and he was in the kids' face and he loves it, right? He's there. We call him M Gray, MJ, obviously M Gray. And he missed every shot that he took. And every shot was half an inch from going in, right? So he was in the right positions. He was there. He made the plays. But every shot bounced out, twirled around the rim, hit the backboard, but didn't go in. And we're like, it's not going to go in for him today. And at the end of it, I reminded him, because it was his first game back from being in the UK all summer. And I said, you never picked up a basketball once in the summer, right? In 8 or 9 weeks. I said, you picked up a tennis racket and you went for a run or you did football or whatever it was. I said, but you didn't really pick up a basketball in the summer, did you? So I said, you can't really expect to walk back into a basketball court after 9 weeks and expect to play really well. Like I said, how you left it in May was amazing, but you'd been playing every day before school and after school, and you'd been to training 3 or 4 nights a week, and you left it where you were. So the wisdom that you needed to hear, Grayson or Tobias, Harry, whoever, is the reason that it didn't go well on Saturday was because you didn't do the thing that was required for it to go well on Saturday. And so sometimes you need to hear some harsh realities. And I've adopted that stance for a long time in my life, either as a father, as a friend. I'm probably not your guy. If you're having a bad day and sulking, I'm not your guy, right? Because I ain't going to put my arm around you and feel sorry for you. I'm going to say, look, dude, are you finished? Because this is what we need to do, right? And this is where you need to go in your life. And that has probably made me a very valuable coach for many, many people listening to this, because I'm not somebody that's interested in how you feel or how you feel about me. I'm simply interested in what are we going to do to achieve your potential, to maximize your success in this life. And that's what I'm interested in for my children. What are we going to do to maximize your potential? Not how you feel about me. How successful you can be without me is the goal, I believe, of a father. It certainly is my goal for my children. How successful will you be without me? So I've got a lot of work to do to make sure before I leave this world that you're as successful as you possibly can be without me. So you don't need the trust fund. You don't need anything off me. You'll have figured this shit out yourself. And I think it's exactly the same with business owners. And every now and again, it's a long-winded way of saying, I've got to come along on a show like this and I've got to remind you, and I have to stand up on stage in front of 250 people at PPM, and I need to tell you, you have a choice. You can bitch and you can whine and you can whinge and you can moan and you can continue down the road of saying that your measly 8% business margin is not your fault. And I'm going to stand on stage and I'm going to say, it is your fault. Because I will be able to wheel out numerous people in that same room who are doing 25s and 30% margins, possibly in your state, possibly in your town, possibly the same age as you, possibly with less clinical skills than you, who adapted and who changed and who focused on the cause, not the effect. If my kid has a bad basketball game and he focuses on the basketball game, he's obsessed with the effect. Sorry, the cause. Not the cause, the effect. The effect is he didn't play well, right? The cause, he didn't train. The effect is 8% margins in $1 million clinic. The cause is the business model. The cause of the business model is the thinking of the owner, the habits of the owner, the actions of the owner, the decisions of the owner, the inability for the business owner to think, shit, this course isn't sailing in the direction that I wanted it to anymore. When I first started this business 8 years ago, the world has changed beyond any reasonable doubt. For those of you who've been in business since COVID, if you've still got the same model and you're still cranking out the same shit every day in that business and you're still kissing the same doctor's asses and you're still waiting for the same phone to ring from the same patients, it's no wonder that your margins have dropped from 12 to 11 to 10 to 9 to 8 to 7 to 6. The world has fundamentally changed around you. And crucially, what's changed, and this is the bit that these fucking theorists and all of these fucking purists who are obsessed with their white papers and this physical therapy profession and, let's all bow to the altar of physical therapy and research and value and all of this bullshit. What none of them do, and this is why, again, why the business, the profession is broke, in my opinion, is none of them sit down and go, should we actually consider that the patient has changed the way they buy? Should we consider that probably like everything else in the world since COVID, 2019's consumer barely buys anything in the way that they did 7 years ago? Can you guys ever remember what life was like before COVID?
Yes, I look back on it fondly.
But wildly different, though.
Insanely different.
And that's what I'm getting at, right? That the world has fundamentally changed as to how we buy, what we watch, what we'll accept, what we want, what we'll do, if we want to go to work, how we order, where we socialize. The fundamental changes to society has happened since 2019. And equally in the business landscape, the thing has happened. As a consumer, you must be different. What you guys must buy, what you must do, what your expectations are, somewhere.
Hugely. So
the exact same thing for a patient. And this is the bit that I don't think business owners are waking up to. How somebody buys has changed. What they'll respond to has changed. Physios weren't on the Instagram in 2019. You were an outlier. If you were on Instagram in 2019, you were an absolute weirdo. You were almost the devil. Seriously, you were the devil because it's wrong to sell yourself on the internet because you're a healthcare professional, right? And all this shit that they've come out with. And then all of a sudden, everybody's on Instagram and everyone's doing a podcast. That fundamentally didn't happen in 2019. People doing YouTube videos and writing books and things like that, they weren't doing them as aggressively as they are today. But people have changed since 2019. And again, if you pushed me since 2019, I'd still say that fundamentally having a book would be the number one authority tool for a healthcare professional. But second to that, a video. If you think about how we used to make decisions in 2019, right? Pre-2019, yeah, video was coming and audio was coming with podcasts. But if you think today, when was the last thing you bought where you didn't watch a video?
Oh, God. Bread?
Yeah.
Simple stuff.
But
yeah, anything else, you want to be completely informed now because your money doesn't go as far.
Anything that you're even remotely thinking of buying, right, other than the basics of bread, milk, cheese, eggs, etc.,
Yeah.
right, that you've done all your life. When was the last time you did it without watching a video on it?
You kind of got to.
And yet, listening to this right now are 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 PTs and 80% of them dare not even put out a video on Instagram. And they wonder why their business is shit. The entire world is buying because of a video on the product that they want to invest now, in the case of a physical therapist, $2,000, $3,000. And the business owner listening to this hasn't got the energy, the desire, the commitment to put out the one thing that would radically change the likelihood that somebody will buy from them. And yet they whinge like shit about their business model. Just let that land. That's the madness. And it isn't, by the way, just in the PT profession. That is the madness of the business owner community, that they just don't wake up to how things have evolved and changed. And then you come along and you say, well, you know, you maybe should start doing some workshops. Well, I don't really want to do that because I have to do them on a weekend and I've got my kids on a weekend. Okay, so you don't want to do a workshop. You don't want to do a video. Do you want to write a book? Well, I haven't really got time. I don't like writing. Well, you could use AI. Well, you know, I'm not into AI. Okay, cool. Where do we go with this? You obviously like being addicted to not making money and struggling like crazy for it, because every suggestion that we come up with, do you want to do wellness? No, I don't think I want to do wellness. Why? Well, I don't think that that's appropriate in a PT clinic. Even though your PT patients are spending 5 times as much money on wellness and regen as they are PT, you still don't want to do it. Let me just clear this up. No, I don't want to do that either. Great. This is why 90 to 95% are struggling, because they fundamentally refuse, much like if it's a child. If Harry refuses to go and train for his basketball Monday through Friday, I will not let him whinge on Saturday. Period. I'll kick him out the car and let him walk home. But I will not let him whinge, and I'll have to tell him that he hasn't earned the right to whinge. And I'm not going to pander to him. I'm not going to kiss his ass. I'm not going to say, I'm really sorry, son, let's try harder next week. I'm going to say, no, are you willing to go home now and start to practice so that by next week, we don't even have to worry about the game because we know you're going to smash it. And if you're not, don't whinge. Just go and enjoy it and just be part of the social and be part of the community and part of the wonderful thing that is the Celebration Basketball Academy or whatever it is he's part of. But don't get in that car and whinge and pretend like you care because you didn't care at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock before school on Monday when it matters most. And I'd say the exact same thing to a business owner. Don't whinge every year that you're not making the money that you think you deserve, right? And all that bullshit, you deserve more. Well, you only deserve, right? You kind of get what you deserve what you get what you deserve, whatever way around you look at it. If you're still running the same business model since 2019, or you've started in the last 2 or 3 years, but you've looked at some older businesses in your town and thought, well, they don't do this and they don't do that, I'm just going to copy what they do, you are going to get what they want. So I think we've got to wake up to this, and to people listening to this show, the world has fundamentally changed. If you aren't putting out videos on a daily basis, if you aren't putting out a book every 2 or 3 years, if you're not running a workshop once a month, if we're not considering wellness and bolting on other products and services, and I can just hear all of the noise on Instagram, and I can hear all of the noise on X, and all of the naysayers, and all of the doubters, and all of the people just looking for arguments who'll say, well, you know, it's the new fad, and this hyperbaric thing, and this shockwave thing. And frankly, I couldn't really give a fuck about your opinion on shockwave or red light or hyperbaric. The only person's opinion that I give a shit about is the one who pays the bill, and I would go on record and be able to prove it that they are spending as much, if not more money, out of their own free will on regen and wellness and things like shockwave than they are on physical therapy out of their own pocket. Now, I'm sure if you add up all the insurance payments, it's more. But somebody who's free, willingly spending their own money, they are spending more money right now on regen and shockwave and wellness and concierge type services than they are on physical therapy. And the two worlds are so closely aligned. It's get me out of pain and help me live a terrific life. Physical therapists over the years have been great. Get me out of pain. Dreadful. It helped me live a terrific life. Regen's come along and said, here's how to look younger for longer, live a better quality of life. And that's where all of the money is going. If you don't want to plug in a wellness service to your physical therapy business, you are running a 4-legged race, a horse race with 2 legs. Good luck. And you will get beat, and you will continue to get beat as time goes on. And then if you don't want to add AI to the mix, and you don't want to put AI in every department in your business because you don't know how you feel about it, well, there's another 5 to 8% of your profit gone as well, because you're overpaying for things that you could get done faster and cheaper for half the price. So what do you want? What do you want is what I'm getting at, dear listener. What do you want? 8% struggle? Is that your identity? Or are we going to start to think about how do we get you to 20, 25 and 30% margins? And one of the things we've got to solve is how do you get staff to support you on this journey anyway? If a big hospital system in your town is paying 150 Gs, even 120, 125, most of you couldn't compete with that and a big signing on fee. How are you going to see this end? Because if not, you're going to become the 9-year-old kid who whinges about playing shit on a Saturday afternoon, and you're going to do it week after week after week after week. And I've no doubt that some other business owner on X or Facebook or some shitty group that you're in is going to go, oh, it's not your fault, and it's the insurance companies, and it's the APTA's fault, and it's the government's fault, it's Trump's fault, it's whoever's fault. And it's not. It's the 9-year-old kid who refuses to practice on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, and Friday morning in anticipation of the game on a Saturday to be the best that he can be. Right now, you can make $1 million practice, 1.2, 1.3 million, 25, 30% margins, 8 to 10 staff, if you have the right marketing, you implement AI, and you bolt on a wellness. And I've got absolute concrete proof that it can happen. So that's a kick-off to the show today. It is also as well the last day for, if you are listening live, which many of you are, head over to ppmlive26.com. The official pre-launch list closes today. You can still get on the list, but the pre-launch list, anybody who joined today will get the cheapest and best ticket offers. We appreciate your interest. As I talk, I believe we've got one, maximum two, I can't remember exactly what it was before I came on air, of the free hotel rooms. So head over to ppmlive26.com. The Planet Paul community gets together for it is just without doubt our biggest event of the year. If you've ever seen our events on Instagram or Facebook, this is the biggest. ppmlive26.com, enter your details and I'll give you all of the up-to-date, up-to-the-minute ticket prices. They are dynamic ticket prices, so the earlier you get them, the earlier, the more money you will save. And we only have a limited number of hotel rooms in the beautiful Renaissance Hotel here in Orlando. So head over now, and hopefully we'll see you in November at PPM Live. Right, what we got? What's questions today?
Yeah, so we've got some more comments off of that post from Facebook.
Let's do it.
So Des TD is asking if a PT works 40 hours a week doing patient care, why does that only add up to $50K a year? Did clinical expertise stop being worth anything, or is this really about how insurance decides what your skills are worth?
I mean, in the end, I'll dig into this, and just to give some backstory on it, there was a post that I made on Facebook about how if PTs were paid for their value, most of them wouldn't get past $50,000, right? And what it was a post that would test the economic brain of anybody that's a PT, business owner or employee, because you've got to be getting up to as close as 4 times what you pay somebody in return for it to be economically viable for your business. Now, that absolutely blows people's brains when they hear it. So if you pay me $100,000 a year, I got to bring in $400,000 worth of patients. It's as basic as that. I've got to return you $400,000. Because the news flash to PTs who are employed is that the business owner also has expenses. So you see $400,000 and you think, wow, that's a lot of money. And you forget that there's 3 front desk girls totaling $200,000. There's rent that's $8,000 a month. There's insurance at $3,000 a month. There is IT support, which is $2,000 a month. There is machinery, which is leased, which is another $5,000 a month. There is repairs and maintenance, which probably add up to another $500. There's phone lines, which add up to another, plus internet, $1,000 a month, etc., etc., etc. And all of these things are called expenses that a business owner incurs, which significantly reduces the share that's available to them of that $400,000 that you think you're making, or the PT thinks that they're making you. That's what always makes me laugh. I made you $400,000. And you go, yeah, but it cost me $380,000 to get that 400. That's kind of how business and life works, numbnuts, right? That's the whole point of business. Somebody has to take the risk. Somebody has to take the responsibility. Oh, and by the way, did I bring up the loan that probably was required to start the business in the first place? Because very few PT clinics get off the ground without a loan. And not your student loan, because the business owner's paying that as well. What you'll typically find, if I took you into 9 out of 10 businesses doing $1 million, I would guarantee I'll find 80 to 100 grand in loans minimum, whether that's a small business loan, still paying off a COVID loan, a line of credit that has been consolidated, multiple credit cards to get to this point now. But of course, zero effort to ever understand this on the part of a PT happens. So when they hear of $400,000, they think, well, I'm making you this much money and this is greedy and I want a pay raise and I want this and I want the other. And it's why I've always recommended, if you ever are hiring people, particularly as a PT, not that it's easy these days, but certainly when I first started recruiting 20 years ago, I would ask people their commercial understanding of how my business worked. Obviously from the United Kingdom, where healthcare is free. Particularly in the town where I was from, I lived in a very, let's call it liberal Labour kind of stronghold, where 65 to 70% of the town would work for the government one way or the other. So their employment was directly to and from the government. The taxes were given to the government would give it back. So they're either unemployed and therefore paid by the government, or they were employed directly. A teacher's employed by the government, a social care worker, a healthcare worker. The majority civil service workers, the majority of the town is employed by the government. So that means that very few people have ever had a parent who worked in a private enterprise. Even less had a parent who owned a private enterprise. So I would often ask, what's your current understanding of commercially how my business works? And very few of them actually understood how a business makes money. And that's a red flag, right? Because they have no clue. In fact, you go ask the majority of the nation, they won't even know where taxes come from. They think genuinely the money that the government has is the government's. And the governments do a very good job of telling you it's their money, by the way, when they say we've raised, we've allocated, we've provided, we've spent. And it's like, you didn't do anything, Mr. Politician. You did jack shit. You sat in a job and took money off people and decided where to allocate it based upon what you thought was right at the time. But you didn't earn the money. And obviously this has played into the psyche of people over the years, that the majority of people hear a politician say, like, we invested $2 billion in this thing. It's like, well, where does that money actually come from, right? Well, it comes from a business owner who produces enough profit to employ enough people for taxes to actually go back into a system. So a lot of people in your world don't understand how all of this works. So my comment about the $50,000 of value, real commercial value, is on the basis that if you went to small PT clinics, now it might be different in the big hospital systems where they manipulate and fudge the costs, the reimbursements, because they all get much bigger reimbursements in the hospital systems. But if I took you into a typical small PT clinic, a mom and pop, 3 or 4 PTs, 10 staff, nice corner of a footfall strip mall in Memphis somewhere, right? I don't know, Harker Heights, like somewhere like a nice little town with a nice little 2,000 square foot unit, I would say that PT is probably bringing in around about $200,000 and therefore is only actually worth $50,000. They're getting paid $100,000, but they're only bringing in $200,000. So they ain't bringing the value that the business owner needs for the business to be commercially viable, which is the point of the business. If the PT is only bringing in $200,000, then they are statistically and factually, commercially, only worth a $50,000 a year salary. And it was a test when I put it out on Facebook to see how many people actually would understand that. That the typical PT in the typical small mom and pop, independent, one-man band style clinic in the United States is probably bringing in $200,000 and therefore is only worth $50,000 of value, period. If they're bringing in $400,000, then they're worth $100,000. Now, these PTs who are asking for $150,000, they've got to be bringing in at least $525,000, ideally closer to $600,000. These are basic facts of running successful companies, that you have to drive enough margin and enough deal flow and enough marketing and sales savviness and skills through the business in order to get your company to get to these levels. So read the question again, because I think I've answered the $50,000. That's where that came from when I posted that on Facebook, that $50,000 represents the value multiplied 1 to 4 is probably bringing in $200,000. Now, if I'm bringing in $300,000, then I'm at, 75-ish, right? Give or take, somewhere around that area. But obviously, we're not allowed to do that. What we have to do is agree to pay somebody and then hope that they bring in $300,000 or $400,000. But what I'm saying is, if you're running a business, just go take a look at what your PTs are bringing in. And I think you'll be horrified that if you've got somebody bringing in $220, they think they're making you $220 and you're paying them $90,000. Their actual value to you is probably only $50,000 to $60,000. It's up to you what you do with that information. What was the first part of the question?
So that was the first part. If a PT works 40 hours a week, why does it only add up to 50,000? The second part was, did clinical expertise stop being worth anything, or is this really about how insurance
Clinical
decides?
expertise is worth nothing, right? And I wish people would understand this. It's such a subjective, can I even call it a construct? It's not where, it's not, it means, what is clinical expertise? Can somebody tell me what this is? How would you quantify clinical expertise, right? And it's a term that they use. The clinical nerds, of which there are thousands, like the number of clinical educators in this profession, I can't believe still how bad so many PTs are, given that there's that many clinical educators, all professing to be the best educator, teaching all these PTs to be wonderful PTs. The industry is rife with dreadful PTs, right? And again, can I say it? Yes, I've hired 70 of them. I'd probably only actually let 10 of them loose on me or my family, right? They're not, the majority of PTs are not that good, is the newsflash. They can barely communicate. They're dreadful with their hands. It takes them 20 years to figure out how to stretch somebody or manipulate somebody, roll somebody safely and appropriately where the patient actually feels safe and comfortable. They've been in practice for 10, 15 years and they still haven't figured out how to use their hands. The value, the concept of clinical expertise is a construct. It's bullshit. It doesn't exist. It's just a loose, throwaway term that nobody has any way of quantifying. The way that we quantify your clinical expertise, and the only way that we do it in a commercial environment, how many people wanted to come back to see you, how many people booked out appointments, how many people followed your plan of care because it felt like you knew what you were talking about, how many people have said glowing things about you and your reputation, so much so that the phone rings off the hook and they want to see you and you're packed out weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks in advance. That's clinical expertise. Everything else is some stupid-ass college lecturer telling you that because you've got a college degree that you're worth X and your clinical expertise has gone up because you did a fucking 6-hour certificate in shoulder impingement somewhere online these days. Zero correlation. Not in the real world where it matters, where stuff actually is on the line and people are accountable and people act with their feet. It's like, don't send an email to your list and say, hey, would you be interested in booking any sessions? Well, yeah, I would be interested. Okay, would you like to do it? No, I'll leave it, actually. They're two different things. Somebody's intent and what they actually do. Whether you think you're a clinical expert based upon you've been on a few extra classes and a few extra courses, let's let the patients decide whether you're a clinical expert. If your calendar is packed, people book out 10 sessions because you tell them to, they complete those plan of care, and at the end, they report feeling so good that they can't wait to come back and see you for any excuse that they sit down and go, while I've got you, can you have a look at my foot? Can I have another 10 sessions? And oh, by the way, how do I refer my mum, my dad, and my auntie? Because they're all living with things that's a clinical expert in the real fucking world, not the bullshit academia world that this profession's been built on. And it is why it's such a dreadful profession for outcomes, and there's so much negativity about it. I've lived through it. I've employed through it. I've listened to people tell me that there's no point going to a PT clinic or a physio clinic in England because they're all the same. They're all bad. It's a waste of time. I had somebody tell me it wasn't worth the car park and fee for the free NHS once in the United Kingdom. Could you imagine the struggle that I had to go through to get them to come into the private profession? And it's these PTs. They're useless. Dreadful, most of them. Now, there is some exceptional PTs, by the way. 20%, I'd probably say, will be outstanding, where you'd think, God, any problem, I'm going to see you, and I'll drive for 3 hours to go and see you. The rest, I wouldn't have them in a lucky bag, in all honesty. But yeah, there they are, demanding 100 grand, 150 grand, and the business owner sits down and says, okay, cool, I need you to make 600. I'm not doing that. That's against my thoughts. That's against my like what I believe in. That's not what this is about. This is healthcare. Yeah, but you're going to want a pay rise. Well, this is how we get it. I need this. My bills are going up. Every staff member, the cost of everything from AI to rent to rates to bills to insurance, all going up. You are going to want to go up. I need mine to go up. So I need you to achieve this. And now we're in this world where you can't even hold them to that level of account because they'll go for a piss, they'll go at the toilet, they'll go on Indeed and they'll apply for another job and probably get a 20 grand pay rise. And that's the predicament right now that PT's owners are in. You've got a world that's saturated with clinicians who have no clue how the real world works, and it's the is world, not the should world. The theorists and the academics are all in the, it should be that this course means you are a clinical expert, right? What the fuck is a what does it mean? Seriously, what the fuck does a clinical expert mean?
Book smart, I guess.
Book smart, exactly. Bullshit, school smart, that does nothing and hasn't done anything for decades. It's so out of date, it's untrue. It's almost cruelty now, the level that people are pushing kids to college and academia. And, oh, go on, your life will be saved by the time you get... I read something in Britain the other day. This is from what I can gather, and again, just in case, I'll put a little asterisk. I have no reason to disbelieve it, and I read it from a reasonable source. 716,000 kids who've gone to college in England in the last 5 years are currently unemployed.
Yikes.
England is the size of Florida. I mean, the population's bigger. Sorry, way, way, way smaller than Florida. Population slightly bigger. 716,000 commercially viable, useful in society kids who have gone to college are unemployed since going to college. Can't get a job these days. And yet, the government is still pushing it. Society will still push it. If I came along and said, hey, I could make you rich, I'd be shut down by the advertising authority as a charlatan. And how dare I say that I could get you a 10 grand a month bump in your business, even though I could wheel out 500 people who'd say I've done it. I could wheel out 500 people who'd say, yeah, if you just do that, you'll make $10,000 a month. But the governments are still allowed to push this thing that every kid has to be under so much pressure that they go from this school, to this college, to this degree, to this thing, to this thing, to this thing. And then they get to the other end and they go, what am I going to do? Well, you're a professional student, kid. That's all you know how to do. The theoretical approach to this in the 1980s, when every kid... I remember I was I'm a child of the 80s. In the 80s, I used to dream about going to college. And genuinely, it was like, I hope I go, right? Genuinely, legitimately, I can still remember in the 80s, it might have been early 90s because I've been 10, 11, 12. And I'm like, I hope I get to go to college. I hope I'm smart enough and brainy enough. Brainy was the word. Because I had older cousins. I'm from a big family. Older cousins were going off to university. I was like, wow. And I remember the first person in our family who went off to university, we were like, she's so clever. She's gone off to uni, right? She's doing some degree in this thing. We're like, wow, she's clever. I hope I can go. Now it's like, what kid doesn't? So the whole theoretical aspect of it, and it's the is well that you need to pay attention to. This is what matters. This is the way it works. Somebody could write a book on any topic now and manufacture some kind of excellence or expertise that will have significantly more credibility than a 5-year college degree. And that pisses off the majority of the world, including this profession. But it's also, if you're listening as a business owner, how you get to move up the gears and up the ladder very, very quickly, is that we start to think about you running workshops and you writing books and you having a podcast or a radio show or being on TV or writing newspapers and articles and all of the things that we've been talking about on this show for years and years and years. The industry is getting what it tolerates, in that the majority of business owners in this profession decades ago had no other choice but to kiss the arse of a doctor and get a referral from an insurance company, paid by an insurance company, at what was back then reasonable rates. I remember on this podcast we spoke to somebody who was a PT in the 80s, paid $17,000, and reimbursements for Medicare were about $70 a session. Fast forward today, Medicare rates are about $85 a session, and the PT's costing $117,000. Somebody do the economics and the madness on that they think that that's still an appropriate model. $17,000 as a salary in the 80s. Medicare reimbursement, $65, $70, whatever it was. 2026, salaries $115,000, 100 grand more. Reimbursement's gone from 70 to 85. And you still think that that's the model that we need to be copying. But this is the legacy models. This is the old-fashioned model. This is the burnt-out model. This is copying a clinic owner who's probably in his 60s or her 70s, who's ready to throw the keys in and go, I'm done. I'm just going to hang out for another year and then I'm out. This isn't the model that the new breed, the modern PT clinic owner, should be copying. That model has died. It's as dead as a dodo, and it's been gone for a long, 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 long time. So the model is gone. Insurance companies have dictated what a PT is worth. Of course they have. But there's now a new breed of clinic owner who's going, I'm worth more than that, and I'm not settling for $85, and I want $300. And I'm happy to go through the legal process of getting myself out of Medicare, and I'll do it right, and I'll have all my patients sign a form before they come in saying I'm out of network and I'm out of Medicare and I'm not touching it. You'll have to pay me $300, and oh, by the way, it's $500 a month as part of my concierge program, just for the pleasure of being able to say you're on my patient wait list. And hearing that, if you think that's not happening in the United States, you're living in cuckoo land. That's been going on for 20 years in this country. That concierge model has existed from doctors who realised that this insurance system was up shit creek without a paddle, and they had enough self-respect to go, I'm out, and I'm going to start charging a concierge fee, and that is just for you to get on my list. And the fee when you get here will be this, but you have the privilege of calling me if you pay me $500 a month. That is going on in dental, in doctors, in OT, in PT, by the way, in chiropractic, in any medical professional with any balls, any reasonable business skills is running that type of model. So I don't blame insurance companies. I don't blame the PTA. I don't blame any of these people. I blame a flock of sheep that have all followed each other for decades, and they've all fell off a cliff. Remember Lemmings? Do you remember the games Lemmings?
Oh, yeah.
Lemmings. Nobody can see the guy at the front falling off a cliff, so everybody follows him. They all get stuck in a ditch, and they all stay there. That's kind of Lemmings, yeah?
That's it.
Everybody's just following each other, literally off a cliff. Occasionally, somebody looks at this at the back and goes, this is a complete crock of shit. This is certain death. I'm going to go another way, and I'm going to start a new trend. 10 years ago, the trend was cash pay. In 2015, 2016, cash pay was the trend. Somebody broke off and went, let's go this way. Today, in 2026, it's AI plus cash pay. We put AI into the business. We are definitely cash pay, and we bolt on wellness. That's the new trend, the new model, the PT profit trifecta, as we call it. That's the model that's opened up today. It started around about 2024. It hit traction in 2025, and today in 2026, it is the model that people are making 25-30% margins. World-class authoritative marketing, making use of the internet and all of the things like videos and social media, follow-up systems, putting AI into the marketing, using AI to reduce payroll costs, make money and save money so things can get done better and faster, and adding and bolting on a wellness model so that patients buy two things instead of one is the PT clinic profit trifecta that we've mastered here in the Planet Paul community. That's why I get so annoyed when I hear about these things, because you can sit there like my 9-year-old and say, well, it didn't work for me today. And I say, well, son, you didn't train. And you can sit there and say, it doesn't work for me in my town, in my state, in my business. And I go, yeah, well, you're running the old model. You're running an archaic model that's been gone for at least 10 years. It started to die when people started to move towards cash pay. So it's up to you. There you go. That's my thoughts on that one. What else?
So we have Dan Crawford from Charleston, South Carolina, who has heard rousings amongst his PTs about an increase in pay to offset fuel costs for some of the PTs with longer commutes.
Do I have to answer this question?
I mean,
So here's what I think. I have a immediate answer that is, I refer to the show about the Tesla. If this dude is worried about his gas costs, I refer him to Tesla.com and the plethora of electric cars that are available to people today. Second, the most important answer that will not be politically correct. It is stunning how many times an employee wants a business owner to pay for their lifestyle, right? We agree a salary, we agree a set of working conditions, and because Trump starts a war in a country 6,000 miles away, it's the business owner that has to pay for the gas increase, right? Now, I get that there's gas increases, and I get that there's increase in chicken and milk and everything else, but it doesn't immediately mean that it's the business owner who should have to pay for all of those things, because after all, the business owner is also paying for his or her own increase in costs as a result of said war, right? So this works every which way we look. And it's funny how I don't aim to get involved in these conversations, and I try to stay out of them as much as I can, but you give me 100 employees, and I'd look you two in the eye at the same point, right? You give me everyone in this building the ability to sit down with you for half an hour, and if you said to me, Paul, can you help me find $3,000 to $5,000 a year? Everyone in this building, I would go on record as saying for 95% of people, I could do it in 30 minutes. Now, a few things will never happen. A, nobody will ever ask, right? They never, ever, ever, ever do. Never. And it's the most craziest thing. You sit down with somebody and you start looking at the cost of things and the frequency of things. They don't do it, ever. I watch, and take this the right way, the fucking DoorDash people arrive with Starbucks, with fucking Dunkin' Donuts. Like, the tip that you're leaving these people is probably costing you $1,000 a year, $2,000 a year alone to get the things delivered. And there's these things called meal preps, which would be half the price. There is your self meal prep, where you actually do it yourself on a Sunday night and you sit down for an hour and you put 6 pieces of chicken breast in the oven and a few vegetables in the grill and a little bit of oil and a little bit of salt and pepper and some chili or whatever you like. And it might not be Gordon Ramsay level shit, right? But number one, it's healthier. It's going to keep you out of fucking hospital. You're less likely to get infected. But number two, and most importantly, it's going to save you, right? Even if that saves you $4 a day on the cost. And then I'm not adding the delivery charge at $2. And then I'm not adding the $2.50 that I go, thanks for the drop-off. I'm at now $8, $9, $10. Some people in here must be spending $20 to $25 a day between Starbucks and food delivery at 12 o'clock. And every time that door goes in this office, I just look and go, holy shit, I'm paying everybody too much money, right? And everybody must be sitting there going, Paul doesn't pay me enough and I'd like more money and the gas prices and blah, blah. And I'm sat there going, what the fuck? But here's what I also know. If that's happening in that area of your life, it's happening in every fucking area of your life. Because how you do anything is how you do everything. Like, I live with a girl. She's scattercash, right? She had to marry me, right? She had to find me, right? If she fucking didn't, I pity the man that she would have found, right? And how he would have kept up with her habits. I have the balls to sit down and actually tell her, have you looked in the bank lately? No. I'm like, do you want to? She's like, no. Right? She knows when I start going through those statements, I'm like, what the fuck? Starbucks? How much?
Matcha.
Fucking matches? What the? Like, I'm
Those
like,
matches are for the
geez,
show.
right? I'm like, what the fuck? How much? Could we just get one of them instead of 3? Oh, but I want it. She'll come out. Do you know what she'll come out with? But they had an offer on, and if I bought 3, I got my stars to get the glittery cup thing, right? That she wanted. So in her head, she gets the glittery cup by spending fucking... She gets a free glittery cup by spending $300 that week on fucking matches. What? Like, what? Like, it's insane, right? And the more you go around, like, your daily discipline and you go, do I have to? Like, I remember, and true as I'm sat here, people still talk about it to this day. We had Marcus Lemonis at PPM Live in 2023. Marcus Lemonis is a billionaire. I paid him $170,000 to speak at my event. He walked in with a 7-Eleven coffee. Just let that digest. He walked in with a 7-Eleven. How much are there? $1, probably? Yeah, he probably had the fucking refill thing. It wouldn't surprise me. He'll have been on some deal for a refill thing for like 50 cents. He's a billionaire. Runs Camping World. Own TV show. Probably arrived in a fucking helicopter. There he is with a 7-Eleven coffee cup. You go get a 15-year-old kid outside Starbucks in Celebration right now and ask them to swap their cool frappe, matcha, iced tea, fucking caramel whip, vanilla slice, coffee shit and swap it for a basic caffeine hit in 7-Eleven and see how hard it is. How much? How hard would you say?
I would say it's impossible.
Impossible with a capital I. And what they don't realise is if the parents said, we're going to put some discipline here, not just basic, just like at 16, that's just outrageous, right? In my humble opinion, no matter how much money you've got, that you're spending $8 or $9 a day on a coffee, when if we did that over a 20, 30 year period, you would be a millionaire. Facts. Factually, statistically, you would be a millionaire before 60. And you would never have to worry about retirement. So there's no excuse, right? And that's why if you sit down and you go through this, And I would say to everybody, but nobody ever listens to me, nobody ever believes me, and everyone just thinks it's all right for you, Paul, and all that shit, but I've done this all my life. You sit down and you look at it and you go, how, at whatever level I'm at, can I find a way to save $3,000 to $4,000? And I've sat with my sister, I've spoken to multiple people about these things, and I go, you don't realise how close you are. $3,000 to $4,000 a year. Is that life-changing? No. $3,000 to $4,000 a year over 5 years? Yes. Because that's your first house. But more importantly, what you found was the discipline to save money. And once you've got the discipline to save money, it isn't always about making more and more and more where the pressure comes from. It's actually just sitting down sometimes and going, how do I swap? I've just wrote an article about this on a similar thing. That ultimately my life today is the byproduct of very, very small, regularly executed decisions. That's it. There's never been a day where I've gone, holy shit, how did that happen? How did that income arrive? How did that business get that big? How did the house get that big? How did the family get that big? How did the lifestyle get wherever it is today? How did the PPM get that big? Well, it started with fucking 35 people at an event 9 years ago. It's small decisions that compound over a period of time. And I don't think business owners pay enough attention. They're obsessed, and people are often obsessed with compounding, monetary-wise. You know, I think people buy into that idea that over a period of time, money compounds and it gets bigger. But I think the quality of your life is the result of a series of small decisions that compound, each one over a period of time. Rent would be another one. Again, people will go and live in certain places, they'll get certain house or car or whatever, and they think, well, hang on, if I went and lived there, I wouldn't need a car. I've argued with a few of the staff in here. They don't need cars. You go live where you live. Right? A car is going to cost you, what, $1,000 a month? When we live in a world, I don't know, how would you get a car, all said and done, plus insurance, plus gas, plus breakdown, plus some shit that'll happen to it, plus fixings, plus the, what do you call it here, the finance. It's got to be $800 to $1,000 a month. Yeah, right?
Well, if you want a newer car, yeah.
Yeah, like even like the insurance must be a couple of grand, right? So it's $200 a month. Gas must be a couple of hundred a month. Your repairs must be $1,000 or $2,000 a year. New tyres, engine blows. If it's an old car, so I've got, even if I'm conservative at $600 or $700 a month, right? And in fact, this was where the conversation came. I was talking to Natalie about it. How a friend of hers had moved out of town to a bigger place, because she was struggling to afford the rent in Celebration. And I said, them 2 cars must be expensive that they run. Why do we need 2 cars? And then the response would be, well, I want to get to Disney, or I want to fucking go in an Uber, $12. Oh, but that's a waste of money. It's not, right? Because you're spending $600 or $700 a month on your car. You could get to Disney and back 3 times a week for significantly less. Well, what if we want to go to the beach? Well, how often do you go to the beach? Once every 6 months. Rent a car for $50 a day. You'd be significantly better off, a lot of people, living in proximity to your life, business, or school, or whatever it would be, and not having a second car and just jumping in and out of an Uber, an e-bike, a scooter, a whatever, walk for heaven's sake. But obviously when you sit down and you do this with people, a visceral reaction takes place and they push back immediately as though you're being rude or whatever. And you're like, oh, all right, like, but like this actually is possible that you could live in proximity to your life and have a better life, but we might just have to give up this or this and you trade it off for this. But that $300 a month becomes $3,600 a year. Over 5 years is 15 grand. That's a deposit on something, on a starter home, on a second home, on a rental home, something, right? A business, like anything. And even if you just stuck, I don't know, $300 a month in the stock market, in a Vanguard bloody investment thing for the next 30 or 40 years, you will have $1.5 to $2 million in the bank. And people listening, oh, that's too binary. It's up to you. Like, you go and do reasonable, get the AI out right now and do it. You would be worth 1.5 million by the time you're 60, 65. You're free. You're free to enjoy life. You can have fun. You can just live within those means. And go look back at all of the things that you've wasted money on that you can't even remember that you spent it on. It is like, it's nuts. I remember going out as a kid, right? We'd go out at the pubs when we were 16, 17, 18 in England. If I put £50 in my pocket, I spent £50. If I put £30 in my pocket, I spend £30. It's as old as time. Whatever I had in my pocket because I was drunk, I'd spend it. If I only had 30, I just didn't buy everybody at the bar a drink. Like, do you know what I mean? It was just the way that we are. So I think, and this is where I go back to, sometimes the best thing that you can do is actually look at your own circumstances. And this is why I do, and I say this and I've said it on record. My job is not to pay for an employee's lifestyle, habits, mistakes, debt, decisions. That's not mine. That's your job to figure that out, right? And if, again, professor of harsh reality, if I was talking to my kids and I said to them, if you've remortgaged your entire lifestyle, having accepted a job at a certain salary that caused you to need more money off your boss because of increases in petrol or gas prices, you've seriously fucked up. Like, you've seriously miscalculated everything from where you live to the car you bought to the level of insurance you took out to the size of your TV to whether you've got Netflix, Disney, Hulu, yada yada. You've seriously miscalculated and not left any wiggle room. You just expect everything to go perfect every month, and it's not going to. And when the inevitable hits the fan, when you get so tight to the line, again, a story in the town from Natalie's friend the other day. A friend of ours who was struggling a little had a car repossessed because it was like half a foot over the yellow line. You're like, you bastard took it. Like, the fucking guy took the car. I was like, how much is that going to cost her? $500 probably, right? You think, fucking hell, how bad you look, right? But the lifestyle's right up against whatever she makes. That's what they live on. So there isn't any consideration, what if? Nobody does that anymore because they live month to month. And in doing so, I need this, I need that, I need the other, I need to buy this. Rather than let's slow all of this down, whatever we earn, let's keep a 10 or 20% wiggle room every month, non-negotiable. And if I have to find it in going to 7-Eleven instead of Starbucks, which a lot of people can do, if I have to find it in meal preps at home, well, last week I was bringing chicken in every day, cooked, like half the price of the meals that I buy if I get them through the gym. Well, why not? Now, a little bit, right? And again, take this the right way, but this is a business podcast. 1 hour to me as a business owner, meal prep makes sense, right? Like, because time is my ultimate asset. In the position that I'm in as a business owner, I will buy time, and I'll pay anybody and everything at this point in my life to buy time. But it certainly fucking wasn't like that when I was 21 and 22. Like, everything that I don't do today was done back then by yours truly, doing 18, 19 hours a day because I couldn't afford a cleaner or a second car or whatever it was. But I got to the point over a period of time because I was frugal and diligent, and I looked at this is what I earn, and that's the little wiggle room I need to have. And if I have to cut back on that, that's what I've got to do. If I have to tell somebody I can't go out on Friday because I haven't got the money, I have to wait until I've got it. Right? If I can't buy the new iPhone, I don't go buy the new iPhone. I historically will have the oldest phones. That's a relatively new one for me. What is this one? A 14 or something? 13? Fuck knows, right? Could I go out and afford $1,000 iPhone? Probably. Yeah, I could. It doesn't have any interest into me. So when you look at people's lives, they'll have the brand new iPhone. They'll have Starbucks every day. They'll have a new car every 2 years. They'll live in a swanky apartment that's $300 or $400 a month more because it's new, rather than something that just works and is appropriate for where they're at. And the totality of all of that could be, conservatively, 10% minimum for anybody in a full-time employment in the United States. Done aggressively, 20%, which could add up to 5, 6, 7, 8 grand a year, which over a 2, 3, 4 year period, that's a wonderful nest egg. But more importantly, and I remember teaching my sister this, you don't want the money. You want the habit that you get into that learns how to manage money. Because if you get that right, you will have a terrific life. And it doesn't matter. And again, I read something recently. It was an American one, this one. And it said that this is on Lewis House podcast, with the financial expert, was talking about how somebody earning $250,000 in the US is still likely to run short at the end of the month. And you can't even consider that when you're a student, right? You hear that type of thing, you're like, there's no way. But that guy will have a bigger sofa, a bigger car, a bigger apartment, bigger outgoings, a bigger lifestyle, and they still run out of money at the other end. So it isn't about the level of money that you get. It's about the discipline that you've got, and having just that little bit of, actually, I might need a year or two here just to calm down. I might need to swap that for 2 years, and I might not be able to get that, and I'm not getting a new phone this year, and I can't go on vacation this summer. I need to skip one because that's another $1,500, and the car, I might need to give it up, and I might need to get an e-bike, and I might need to get an Uber to the places that I need to be able to travel to, and the occasional place where I would have had a car, I can't go. And I can't do that for 2 years. But I can still get around and I can still live and I can still have a lifestyle, or I move somewhere closer so I don't need to. And that's why I'm a little reluctant. I'd much rather somebody walk through the door and go, Paul, this is the value I've generated for the business. Look at the difference I've made to your company. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done the other. Way over and above, way over and above what I was asked to do 6 months ago. Can I talk about how that looks like for me? If somebody just goes, I need an extra $2,000 because gas prices have gone up. Me, personally, I just, fuck you. I would. And it's out on record and I've said it many, many times. That's not my job. That's your job. And anybody listening, and again, I'd be teaching my kids this. But if you came to me and said, I've done all of these things over and above, look what's happening to your business as a result of what I've done. Is there any chance? What would it look like? How could I? That feels like a boss has given somebody something to help grow the business, and there's a partnership, not a lifestyle consequence that had absolutely nothing to do with me and my business. And that's where I would go at. I get it and I respect it, and this podcast can come across as either way. But I speak to every single person. You're new to me, right? I speak like this all day, every day. I'd speak it in front of every member of staff. I've spoken it in front of every employee at PPM Live, my own included, when I get asked questions like this, that this is how it works. In the exact same way that when every one of my kids is in the room, I hope they're listening to every word that I say, because I'm trying to set you up to be independently successful, not cover your gas bill at the end of the month. That's a kid coming in saying, I want a better computer. Daddy, I'm not happy with my new fucking PlayStation 5. I want the PlayStation X and I want you to pay for it. It's like, hang on. Like, what are you going to do? What do I get out of this? Like, how does this work, kids? That's what I think we're raising, and I don't think it's any different. And I think as a business owner, unless you get really clear on your morals and your stance in what all of this is, it's hell on earth. So that's what I would say. Comments in the chat. Strausser Teresa, is it? Strausser Teresa. It's all about discipline and looking at the small hobbies. I agree. It reminds me of what the bar rescue guy preaches. Who's the bar rescue guy? Does anybody know?
It's a TV show.
TV show, yeah. That's how good billionaires do it. Well, that's why they are billionaires. And again, I'm going to say it. The majority of the world looks at the billionaire and they go, they're lucky. Oh, they just walked into money. Money just dropped into their lap. It's like, fuck off. It fucking didn't, right? Like, fuck off. It just annoys them. That's the shit that the politicians will come out with. What else have we got going on here? Harry, I'm joined. Justin Blake, Physio VJ, Patrick Keenan, Coney Tonway, nice to see you, Tony. Ot B Physical Therapy, Evangelinica, I think, Louise Mahiro, Asawa Ja, Taj Moss 13, Amanda Hugginkiss, I'm of HEP. Type into the chat when you come in, say hello. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Are we done?
I think we're done.
We're done for the day. Good questions and good debates happening on Facebook and Instagram, everywhere we look. We're not having your typical conversations in this podcast about just whatever, right? We're trying to help you become the best business owner that you can be, to think differently, to live a better quality of life, to be different from the pack. The pack are miserable. They're not happy. They're not living fulfilled lives. It all starts with the way that you think and the way that you see life, followed by the way that you act. Once you get a little bit of changing to your thoughts, you change the way you act, you change your momentum, progress in life is absolutely and utterly inevitable. But it all starts with the way that you think about all of this. Money and debt and expenses included, business model included. It's the way you see it, as always and forever. So thanks for listening. We appreciate you. ppmlive26.com, biggest event of the year. If you are liking what we do, you're new to us or me, or you've just been on the periphery for years, wherever you are in the world, you are welcome at ppmlive26.com is the place to go and start your journey with us. You cannot do it on your own. It's impossible to be successful on your own doing anything. It is lonely. It's hard work, harder than it needs to be if you're trying to do this on your own. Come and find a community. We have the best, the most successful business owners, the most fun, the most welcoming. How many business conferences do you know that are going to theme around Top Gun or Austin Powers, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's funny. But what we're getting at is that we don't take things too seriously, and any opportunity to find and have fun and just let our hair down and celebrate and party and have a few drinks. And yes, I will encourage you to go to the bar on Friday night and have a beer and be hungover on Saturday. Bring your team, have fun with them, and you will enjoy it as much as you will learn as well. So ppmlive26.com, head over there, and we shall see you at the big event here in Orlando in November. See you then. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.